Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about Omens of Destruction, and did it fail as a DLC? The reason I'm making this video is because we have Tides of Torment coming out in just over a month, as well as the fact that many of the same people that worked on Omens of Destruction also likely are working on Tides of Torment, and I hope that they have learned some important lessons from it, but I'm not quite sure they have. Yesterday, for instance, Creative Assembly released their retrospective video on Troy and Pharaoh, and my was that video telling. The only person who had any kind of self-reflection on stage was actually the person in charge, the lady in charge of everything related to Troy and Pharaoh. And because she mentioned at one point, well, it didn't quite work out the way we wanted it to. But she was the only one with any kind of self-reflection. I understand, it's a stage, it's a certain script, you have to say a certain message, I get it. To which I would ask, was that really the kind of video you wanted to release at this point, Creative Assembly? Because it really felt like a self-congratulatory video for two of the worst releases in Total War history that are only equaled or potentially surpassed by things like Thrones of Britannia and Shadows of Change. And just a mention about Shadows of Change, it actually didn't sell well. But beyond that, I was pretty pissed about that video because there was one point where one of the guys on set were saying, it's like, oh, people just wanted us to do Age of Mythology Total War. Kind of joking about it, laughing about the idea. To which my view was, yeah, Age of Mythology Total War would have been awesome, unlike what you guys produced. And two, you do not get to badmouth Age of Mythology or joke around Age of Mythology. It's 100 times the game that any of you lot has ever made. And on top of that, it's genuinely a better game with a bigger legacy than anything Creative Assembly has ever done. And I'm not saying that lightly. So yeah, that video, I certainly hope that's not the attitude that we have right now in CA Sofia, because if it is, and these guys are working on Warhammer 3 at the moment, I think we got the problem. Pretty damn big problem at that. Now, talking about Omens of Destruction, here's what I would say about it as a DLC. It certainly didn't do as well as Thrones of Decay. Thrones of Decay had more reviews and more positive reviews than Omens of Destruction. It's also a question of legacy, because people look back at Thrones of Decay and they'll be talking about it for years as being one of the best DLCs that Creative Assembly has ever released. They won't be saying that about Omens of Destruction. I think the problem with Omens is that you clearly have people that worked on the free stuff, so the racial reworks, Arbol, Scrag, Greases, Skarsnik, that knew what they were doing and did a pretty solid job with it. But then you had the people working on Skulltaker, Maneater, and Gorbad that, well, let's just say they didn't quite know what they were doing. Like, consider Arbol's campaign as an example, and why it's so awesome. It's not because he's super powerful or he can win the campaign very quickly. He can. But what makes this campaign work is you actually have something at stake. So if you lose a battle with Arbol, it's not quite campaign over, but you certainly don't want to lose a battle with Arbol. And then you can go around the world dealing with various challenges. And bear in mind, this is the free campaign. It's a pretty awesome campaign dynamic that really makes you engaged in it. Sure, it might be shorter than some other campaigns, but when people think back to Omens of Destruction, you know what they won't be thinking about? Skulltaker. Like, consider Skulltaker. Arbol actually has a better Skulltaker campaign than Skulltaker does, because Skulltaker is supposed to be this duelist. He's seeking out worthy foes, he's fighting them, he's defeating them. That is exactly what Arbol does. Meanwhile, Skulltaker has just got a Dyson Sphere of Blood Toast available to him, infinite movement range at launch, and still plenty of movement range, as well as a bunch of ridiculous stuff. Also, I have to say that anyone placing a campaign in Lustria clearly has no understanding of what they're doing. In the sense like, oh, let's make a cool, powerful legendary lord, and then we throw him in Lustria. if that wasn't a bad idea, I'm not sure exactly what is a bad idea. And that's I think the problem with Skulltaker. Because with Omens of Destruction, you clearly had some awesome stuff for Khorne. The legendary heroes, the units, the rework. Sure, there's problems with like the demonic mortal split between settlements, because yeah, mortal settlements are just flat out better because of the way auto-resolve works, because of the campaign incentives, the battle perspective, etc. But overall, the Khorne rework is pretty good. But that's the free stuff. The paid stuff, not so much. And I think that is very telling. In comparison, I want to think about the Dwarf situation. See, Malachi is an awesome campaign not because he's so powerful, nor because his campaign is quote-unquote hard. The reason Malachi's campaign is so amazing is because you've got a lot of stuff to do. So dwarves inherently, after their rework, got more stuff to do. Grudges, legendary grudges, confederations, and then you add Malachi's adventures on top of that. That's the reason Malachi stands as the best campaign in Total War at the moment. There's just things to do, objectives to aim, things to throw yourself against. Basically, Arbol is closer to reaching that standard than any of the paid lords of Omens of Destruction. But speaking about the ogres, when we look at Ogre situation, you can say Greases and Scrag got amazing updates and reworks that really made them stand out. Greases is just the god of gold for all we care, and Scrag is the god of meat. They're both pretty fun and interesting to play. Sure, ogres are ridiculously strong, and the way you build camps, the whole meat aspect early on in a campaign can be a bit jarring, but that's more of a balance issue. But then when we compare those two campaigns to Maneater's campaign, we end up having a bit of a problem. See, Maneater is not bad as a legendary lord, but he's also not especially interesting to play at the same time, because you're just smashing through Ostland or Norland, or Norland. The only threat that you may have, and I emphasize on the may aspect, is fastest, and basically you're in a very safe, secure position, and you're just going around beating the crap out of people, having more money and resources than everyone else. You don't have interesting decisions in Maneater's campaign. You should. I really do believe you should, but you don't. So that was underwhelming. And it's pretty telling that Maneater did get the highest review scores on Steam out of any Omens of Destruction DLC characters, but he also... he got the highest percentage of review scores, rather, but he also got the fewest review scores. So if you're looking at a campaign that sold the worst, it is actually Maneater. And I think it is pretty telling about that. Might have something to do with ogres, the situation of ogres as race, how you access them, may have had an impact on all of that. But it could just indicate that a lot of people just weren't particularly engaged with that campaign, just like a lot of people weren't particularly happy about Skulltaker, especially when you have the contrast of Arbol. Honestly, I would rather play Scarbrand, who doesn't have a unique campaign mechanic. I'd rather play Scarbrand than play Skulltaker. Like, basically, Khorne has two legendary lords now free. Skulltaker is not worth playing. He's worth confederating. Playing him, kind of the worst aspects of Total War in a campaign. Finally, there were the Greenskins in Omens of Destruction. The DLC stuff, DLC units, DLC Lord, Hero, pretty solid. Legendary Hero, not really that interesting, at least in the way you have to recruit it. But regardless of that, Gorbad is an interesting Lord from a lore perspective, being a smart orc that actually uses strategies and tactics. He has a good Lord effect, he has a good skill line. His campaign dynamic, his starting position in Black Crag does allow for a whole bunch of different possibilities by playing smart in a campaign and engaging in diplomacy with both, say, Scrag and Clan Moors. So many different possibilities in this campaign, it can be interesting. But there's also a reason why Gorbad has the lowest review score of any of the characters in Omens of Destruction. And that's because he's more of a checklist type legendary lord than an actual good one. People confuse depth for a checklist. A checklist is having 30 different tactics or different plans over here, pretending that it adds any actual depth. Some people want to argue that, well, it pushes different unit variety. No, it really doesn't. Because, one, you have to maintain different types of units in your army, and variety doesn't work like that, because you end up with units that are practically useless, that are doing nothing in battle, and you're just dragging them along for the kind of benefit. It's also a temporary buff, though you can obviously extend the duration. But for instance, consider something like Drag the Battle Wagons. Great idea, right? To replenish your campaign movement range after winning a battle, raising a settlement, income from raising settlements, but you have to drag 2 Wolf Riders around with you. What do you think those Wolf Riders are going to do in every single battle you're fighting? Practically nothing. Certainly when you're going up against something like the Empire, which, given the fact you're required to take Silent from Elspeth pretty much, you're going to be dealing with the Empire quite a bit. So it doesn't work a lot of the times with these kind of things. And believe it or not, Drag the Battle Wagons is the example of something that actually is a genuine benefit. Things like Gobbo Chant. Other things, not so much. It was like, missile block chants and arrow catcher for goblin infantry units. That's great compared to regimental or power of the Wa. Regimental in particular, call a Wa and you get 10% campaign movement range, 15% upkeep, and minus 30% vigor loss reduction. See, army variety, actual depth of army variety requires more than just a checklist of plans. It requires things like upkeep. It requires things like the red skill line of characters to be improved, because whatever benefit you get from the plan does not compare to the fact that you can't get all the benefits from the red skill line. You just can't level a lord like that. And this is where you really feel the influence of CA Sofia developers, because this checklist of bloat is something they've done before. It's one of the problems I have with both Troy and Pharaoh. It's like someone telling you that they went to Greece and visited the museums, including the Archaeological Museum of Athens, and then you ask them, what was your favorite piece? Not maliciously, I should add, just asking them out of curiosity, and then they freeze up and have no answer because they didn't think about that. Whereas in reality, the most impressive piece from my view of the museum, the Archaeological Museum of Athens, is the ancient naval computer that they dug up from the seafloor. But that's just my perspective. I'm sure others have different views. But don't confuse quote unquote variety, checklist of variety versus actual depth in a campaign. And that's the problem with Gorbad, and why I think he's actually not as popular as some people believe. Every time I've talked about Gorbad play, if people are like, oh, you're just being negative, to which I reply, I'm not the only one, and there's a reason for that. In fact, the clear majority of people who bought this DLC feel the same way. Also, his faction effects are pretty pointless, except global recruitment duration, because, income from raising settlements. You don't want to raise settlements as Greenskins, you want to sack or loot them. Extra Wa rewards. Great, I get a couple of extra benefits every 20 turns if I even declare a Wa every 20 turns. Actually, it's more like 25, 30 turns. Yeah, that's really fantastic. I'm sure that's an amazing benefit, especially once I conquer freaking Tsar Nagrund and don't have to care about any benefits because, I get the construction cost benefit and weapon strength benefit faction-wide, and it's like nothing else compares. It's like the people who made Arbol, Scrag, and Greases, and even Skarsnik. Skarsnik is a better campaign in roughly the same area. He has a better campaign dynamic. He has a more interesting playstyle, and you can confederate Gorbad along the way. So the great things about Gorbad, you can have them if you're playing Skarsnik. If you're actually playing Gorbad, you lose out a lot on a lot of that uniqueness and actual depth that Skarsnik has for bullshit meters. This is what happens with Eastern European developers. It's like, checklist is not depth. And I hope Creo Assembly has realized that. Christine signing out.